We know that you guys have busy schedules, and so do we. We like to honor that. And so let's go ahead and get going. We're going to start with wins. But before we kind of get into that, I just want to remind everybody that before we get into the presentation, we're going to have an open Q&A. This is for any questions that you have. I know recently I've gotten a lot of questions about, hey, Nicole, what softwares do you recommend for a service company for scheduling? Or, hey, Nicole, my insurance went up. Do you know what any of your other clients, who they use for their insurance? I might be able to get a better deal. You know, you might have questions about the group call from last week. This is an open Q&A. There's no dumb questions. It's just a time for you to get feedback from not just coaches, but also from other clients. And so before we get into wins, I just want to remind everybody, start thinking if you do have a question, something maybe you were going to ask your coach the next time you talk to them, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to get some really valuable feedback. So keep that in mind, be thinking about your questions, and then let's go ahead and get into wins here. How are we winning? Large, small, we celebrate them all. Just go ahead and unmute and tell us what's been happening.
Yep. And we'll say just good things in general, things that are going well, business or even personal life, we like to celebrate because it sets that right positive tone.
I can give one. I have officially moved forward with beginning the hiring process for an office manager, as Nicole knows. So that's a big win, just kind of, taking that big step forward. And then I have several phone interviews scheduled for the next couple of days. So I'll count that as a win.
Yes, Riley, that is so exciting. Keep us posted on how the interviews go, but that's really going to be the next step to growing that company. So very excited for you.
Absolutely. And thank you for the push forward, Nicole. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. Any other wins? If you don't have a mic, you can always type it in the chat.
I've got a client that had a hiring win as well, but we've posted that we've had ran a few rounds of posting for like lead carpenters. Always kind of a tough one to fill, and just kind of had some people come and go that weren't really what we were looking at, and so we revisited the job posting and really focused on the benefits, really like focused in there, made some adjustments to it. And after running it for 2 weeks, had multiple great candidates to choose from. And this is in New York's Quain's property development. And after running for 2 weeks, he had 4 or 5 guys that he would seriously consider hiring, that he thinks that he would like to work with, that have as much more experience than he even has in the industry, and was able to choose from several qualified candidates instead of just having to take whoever applied. And that's on top of also adding a office manager here recently. So he's had a lot of success with the hiring system as well, and he's actually progressed through it now.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like it's definitely, well, I don't feel like it. I know it. It's definitely hiring season. There's a lot of wins going around about hiring, but also a lot of conversation happening about hiring. So that, yeah, I mean, Keen Construction and Remodeling is another guy that I'm working with, and that's something that we did. And he's used Indeed before. I think I shared this maybe last week, but ended up getting 3 applicants overnight, just the first day that we put in a post on Indeed. But he didn't know that you could do that for free. So I want you guys to know that you can post for Indeed for free and still get decent applicants. You're not going to get nothing. Now, of course, there's always fluff to sift through, but yeah. Any other good things going on, big or small?
We're just going to get real comfy with the silence as we wait.
All right, we won't make you endure it any longer. Let's go ahead and pivot into kind of the Q&A time. Just, again, we really want this to be an opportunity for you guys to rub shoulders with each other, get a lot of advice that may be more specific, but yeah, getting some cross-pollination between the coaches and also each other to answer some of those burning questions you may have throughout the week, or things that are just coming up, things you're curious about, what other guys are doing in XYZ area. Again, we have a pretty good track record of tending to work with pretty good business owners already. And then, of course, as we work together, it's even better. So what questions do you have for us or for others?
Questions, concerns, grievances. It's amazing. I feel like every time I get on the phone with a client, they kind of start off the call with, "Hey, Nicole, I have this situation or I have this question." But then when we get in a group setting, people get shy. But for those of you who are on the group call last week, there was a ton of good feedback from other clients that I, as a coach, I've never ran a construction project. So I'm not going to know these intimate little details about permitting and stuff like that. And so you can get some really good, valuable feedback, not just from us, but from other clients. And so questions about anything, we would love to get some feedback to you.
Yeah, or even what the biggest issue you're struggling with in your business, or if you had a successful learning, like something that was really important for you that you gained, recently, whether that's through the school of hard knocks or maybe through something else.
Yeah. As you guys are thinking about that, I saw Jordan put in the chat. I'm going to read his question out loud. He said, "How does a good business owner stay mentally tough through hard times? Are there things they tell themselves? Any examples of how they got through hard times?" I would love to hear from a
Yeah,
client. I think that, I'm not a business owner. And so I would love to hear from a client on how they stay mentally tough, how they stay committed, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. Could anybody unmute? I know. I agree, Jordan. He goes, lively group today.
I
Think people,
I think it gets easier every year that you go through it, but we're just coming out of probably 6 weeks of a half full schedule and going into the next 4 months of a double full schedule. And so every time that you go through it, you anticipate further and further out the things that you need to capitalize on your double full schedule. So I just bought a new van yesterday, even though my schedule for the next 2 weeks is only half full, because I know in the next 4 months I got to hire 2 more guys to put in that van to address the schedule that's going to be double full. So I keep myself sane by trying to figure out how to capitalize on the crazy times, not just stressing out about my half full schedule for today.
that's awesome. Yeah, being able to prepare by having perspective, you know what's coming or you've seen it before. That's really valuable. I know there are
anybody?
others that definitely feel the way that you're feeling, Jordan. Others in this call as well that are feeling burnt out or on the edge of being burnt out, especially as things get busy and maybe you've tried stuff before, maybe you've been in business a while. So I know that you're not alone, at least in that.
And I would even say that that's part of why we do group calls. And it's why we encourage you guys to talk, because being a business owner is not for the faint of heart. It is tough. And it kind of like what Brandon was saying is, every year it gets a little bit easier. It doesn't mean that new challenges don't arise. In fact, I can guarantee you that new challenges are going to arise. That's
And
kind of the nature of the beast.
and I'm in the burnt out group.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. Yeah,
I
but you've
feel you.
got you've got to look at it. You've got to celebrate the small wins. That's why we start calls with wins. That's why we're so butthurt when you guys don't tell us what's good, what's happening. Because we know that there are things that are good and that's happening, even if it's, hey, I didn't, I haven't hit my revenue goal this month, but what good has happened? I know that there's something. We've got to celebrate those little wins.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be so focused on that big win, it's going to feel so daunting and it's going to be disheartening. Also, Jordan, take care of yourself. If you're not taking care of yourself, it's going to be really hard to come to the business every day feeling your best. And so whatever you need to do to take care of you so that you're showing up your best, do it. Scott, I
Yeah.
saw you raise your hand. I would love for you to unmute if you can.
Yes, I was just gonna pitch in a little bit, not to sound preachy, but that's where prayer, meditation, some alone time, some quiet time to really meditate, and not really meditate on, I'm gonna tell you my personal what I do. I don't meditate on my problem or pray about my problems necessarily, but I do start to count, be thankful for what I've had, what I have, and what I'm doing. And when you start thinking about the positives, and it goes along with what you're talking about with sharing wins with people and hearing other people's wins, it really does kind of re-energize and revitalize and give you new perspective. A lot of times it's perspective. What I
Absolutely. Scott, you're welcome to get on your soapbox and preach anytime. We welcome it fully. That's great advice.
Yeah, for sure. I think somebody recently said that gratitude and anxiety can't exist in the same space. I don't know if it's because your brain uses the same area or something like that. But yeah, gratitude for what you can be thankful for. And, it's kind of forcing yourself to think of anything but your problem. I think that's really, really good, Scott. Something I want to encourage too is when we do the question and answer time, because this is all still new, just want to encourage you, it doesn't have to be profound. Even just sharing in solidarity of like, yep, that's me too, that I think has its own effect for people to feel this comfort of, okay, I'm not alone, at least. You don't have to be super eloquent in what you speak, and definitely appreciate if you can be eloquent. That's awesome. But I want to take any sort of pressure off of like feeling like you have to have words super well thought out in order to contribute.
Absolutely. Any other questions? You can put them in the chat, unmute.
I have a question. I'd certainly be interested to hear from some other contractors or remodelers what maybe softwares that they've used for just generalized like a CRM. I use Marquette currently, and kind of feel like it has some limitations. And I know there's some others out there. I know a lot of people use like JobTread, I think, or Jobber and stuff like that. So not sure if I'm committed to making a switch, but certainly have been considering it just because I'm not in love with the one I'm using. So if anybody,
And Riley, tell everybody what industry you're in, because people who are more like service are gonna probably use a different one than what you do.
Right. So I focus mainly on bathroom remodeling and general contracting, marketing myself as a bathroom remodeler, certainly, get other jobs that come in the pipeline, but trying to focus on the bathroom remodeling space. So
I use Jobber currently for handyman service, and I've used Buildertrend in the past for remodeling. Buildertrend's nice because you get a really in-depth file that you can put tons of pictures in and do daily updates. And in the end, the client gets a full file of everything that you did there. It's also helpful every time we talked about last week having some issues. You can document all of your progress. It has timestamps on it, and you can do all your estimating and stuff in it. It's a really in-depth software, so it takes a lot of time. But if you want your client to have a really awesome file that they can use to show how good your work is, if they go to sell the house later, they can see all the work that's underneath just the cosmetic stuff on the outside, and you can give them kind of a front to back picture of everything that you did there. A lot of other CRMs don't have the capacity to hold that much data in a client file as something like that for what you do.
cool. I'll definitely check that one out for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that Buildertrend tends to be the one I hear about the most for general contractors. Not saying it's the end all be all, but I think it's probably the most popular. Anybody else? Does anybody use like Co-Construct or anything like that?
I've used CoSential and it integrates with Procore. I really liked it when I used it. Steep learning curve though, but once you get it, it's super helpful.
And I'll say, Kendall, it's a steep learning curve no matter which one you do. And that's what I always tell my clients is I was like, any of them can probably work for you. Like there might be some that are superior than others, but the determining factor on whether or not it's going to work for you is you committing to working the program because it is a lot to take on. It's a lot to learn. And if you aren't willing to take the courses, really dig and lean into it and make sure you're utilizing the platform, it's not going to do anything for you. And I can even say that with our team when we switch softwares or start something new, getting members up to speed, reminding them what to fill out and where, like it's a lot of reminders, it's a lot of commitment.
Yep.
Oh, I was gonna ask Kendall, you said you used to use it. Is there a reason you don't now? And then you switch to something else?
Yeah, so this was back when I worked for a bigger general contractor. Now that we are doing Developers Plus, we don't. The CRM we're using is Redmond Gross, but that was
Okay.
in my past life.
I figured that was the case. Thank you so much, Kendall.
Hey, Nicole.
Yes.
This is Sean. So, I use Joist for my bidding, and I do basically remodels and bathroom remodels and about anything to do with additions and remodels. So,
Yeah.
and it ties in nicely with QuickBooks. So, and it's real easy to deal with, and you can go pretty explicit with it, or you can go pretty lax on it. Basically, you have quite a bit of options.
Awesome. It sounds pretty customizable to what you're directly needing.
Yes.
Well, Riley, I think you've got a lot of options. What I would recommend is at least looking at 3. A lot of them have trials. A lot of them have like a little small intro course or something that you can look at and really see what's all included, what's the price point's going to be, what's my options, what's the commitment, and really be able to figure out what's going to be best. I would say this is good timing for you because you are looking at hiring an office person. And what I've found is when implementing a new software, having an ally, having somebody else who's going through the courses with you, who's learning it with you, who's helping implement it, because it will have some frustrating stages. Having somebody else who's doing it with you and learning it with you is definitely helpful with getting through it.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And I appreciate everybody's insight. I think the one I'm using now is a little bit more handyman based. So I think it, has limitations in terms of what the services I offer. So, but that's a good point. I didn't think about that. But yeah, I'll certainly, keep you posted on that. So thank you, everybody.
Sounds good. Michael, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, is there any way to have a Q&A group page? Because some of us are driving and some of these answers can't be broke down. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So we do have a Redmond Growth Facebook page, and you're always welcome to go to there and make a comment. We are debating, and with this question, I'm going to take it to my boss because I've been pushing for this for a minute, having a Facebook group for active clients. So that you guys have, I'm sure you guys are parts of some types of groups that would function a similar way where you'd be able to go in there, post a question, and be able to get feedback from not just the Redmond Growth team, but also other clients, and also be able to kind of connect, be able to build friendships if you need a new friend, and be able to make those connections. Jordan, I see you have a question in the chat here. Anyone have a good balance between being loyal to their insurance broker and shopping for insurance? Insurance only goes up every year. Do you always have to shop every year, or do you consider the value of a good insurance broker? Any thoughts? Kendall, it looks like you responded, and I would love to get feedback. It depends on the relationship you have with your broker. If you feel like they're working hard for you, then keep them. You'll get discounts for your tenure with that company, but definitely shop around if you don't feel like your broker is working hard to find the best rates each year. And I would totally agree with Kendall. If your broker is just sending you the renewal every year and saying, here's the new cost, they're probably not looking into it. And you got to think the more money that you get charged more money the broker typically makes too. So sometimes they're a little bit incentivized to just set it and forget it. I'm a big believer in, and this is the profit first gal in me, the delay, dilute, and delete expenses gal in me. I would be shopping every single year. Even if your broker is your buddy. I was actually, when you put this question in, I was trying to see if Dale Eads is in the chat here with Arnold's Plumbing, because he had this dilemma. He's a big OU Sooners football fan. I don't know if I can get a show of hands, anybody big OU fan. We're in Oklahoma, so you're either OU or OSU. But he gets season tickets, and him and his son, they go and tailgate before the games every week. And his favorite tailgate party is actually one that his insurance broker does. And so when he was feeling like his insurance got a little too high and his broker wasn't doing anything, he was a little conflicted. He's like, Nicole, I don't want to lose this tailgate. And I was like, Dale, I totally get you, buddy. But priorities, okay? We gotta look at the numbers, our margins, our overhead, and you can probably still go to his tailgate. I would just communicate to him. I would say, hey, I'm really needing to get a better deal. Could you shop around and look for me? And while he's shopping around and looking, you might be testing the waters too, seeing what you can find out there. I think usually just communicating with your broker and letting them know, hey, I'm going to need a better deal, going to need you to look around. Typically, they'll find you something. Yeah, but I just thought that was the funniest thing. I'm like, you don't want to lose that tailgate. I get it. Any other questions? These are great, guys. Stick them in the chat, unmute.
Yeah, how big of a plumbing job can we get Dale to do for some OU tickets?
Kendall, if you guys were in Texas and willing to drive up, Dale would probably just take you. He would probably he's a good guy. He loves to do it. And so if you made the drive, he'd probably just be willing to take you with him. He's awesome. I know he does breakfast he's in Oklahoma City, so he's like 2 hours away from where we're based out of in Tulsa. And I know that he's invited the coaching staff before to join them on Friday mornings. They do training and breakfast, and he's
This
invited
is the first
us.
we're hearing about this.
Maybe you weren't
I've
on
never
the
been
group
invited,
call where
Nicole.
he invited. Well, I told you guys that Rudy was his favorite. I think he may have been specifically like, Rudy, you should come on down. But I'm sure we could have tagged along. Any other questions? We'd love for you to unmute.
Cool. Well, Mike, I love and appreciate as well the question you asked about getting a spot for being able to ask some of these questions, dialogue, even outside of just this time. I still think this is going to be a really valuable time for that. But then, yeah, we'll see what we can do in getting that put together. It's something we've wanted to do for a long time, but wanted to gauge some interest a little bit. And I don't know, might as well. Are other people interested in that? If you had a Facebook group with Redmond Growth active clients, would that be valuable to you?
I'm seeing some head nods.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. Well, we'll get on it, guys, and we'll let you know once it happens and get everybody the invites and go from there. Okay, so we will have another Q&A after this presentation. And so if you weren't able to ask your question, you will be able to then. If questions arise during the presentation, you are welcome to interrupt. You're also welcome to know that we will have a Q&A at the end as well. And so just this is an open dialogue. I'm not here to get on my pulpit, and Lord knows I will if you'll let me. So just don't be nervous to interrupt me. Interrupt me if you want. This is the time to ask questions, get feedback, and really get a better understanding. So what I'm covering today is really just the fundamentals of pricing. I'm not going to get super deep into it because I do want us to have time to ask questions and dig more into it. If you're still confused by the end of this call, you're more than welcome to book a laser call to get some clarity on it. But Pricing is a big challenge with business owners. Can anybody feel that way? Can I get a amen? Yes. Show of hands. I see. Yep. All around. And this year, I would say even more than like years of COVID, um, pricing has been pretty volatile. You know, inflation, it's an election year. It's a little bit weird. People are tightening their belts. You know, I feel like I'm getting pricing questions all over the board. And before I get into this presentation, one thing that I really want to communicate in this presentation is pricing and sales go hand in hand. Okay? If you want to be able to price the way that you deserve, if you want to be able to hit your margins, if you want to be a premium service, you're going to have to charge premium prices. But that also means that you're going to have a premium sales process that is focused around building value. And so I'll get a little bit more into that, but I want us to kind of keep that in the forefront of our minds, that pricing the way you need to price and selling the way you need to sell go hand in hand. Those are very much so together. So some kind of core principles when it comes to pricing. The first thing I want to say is pricing is not set in stone. It is fluid. This is why when we have clients that ask us, do you know of a price book or an estimating software or something that I can just buy and then my estimating will be accurate? The answer to that is always no. There is not one. There's a ton of different price books out there. There's a ton of different estimating softwares. Earlier, when we were talking about Builder Trend and all of these different scheduling softwares, a lot of them do come with a price book or an estimating software. But they must be edited. It doesn't count for inflation. It doesn't count for the area that you're in and material costs, which are constantly changing. And so even if you are using a price book or an estimating tool, you've got to make sure that the material prices are accurate. You're calculating in inflation. It's something that you're always going to have to pay attention to and edit. Otherwise, you will see your margins, your profitability going down. And that would be why we've got to constantly be editing it. And then as your business grows, when you're just a one-man show, you're just a truck in a truck, rocking it out. You don't have any employees, no warehouse. All you have to do is worry about yourself. Your margins are going to be a bit different than when you have 4 vans in the field. You have 2 different crews. You've got a warehouse. You've got other things. So as your business grows, your margins are going to change, which means that your prices are going to have to be adjusted in order to remain as profitable as you were when you were just a one-man show. And so that's why, even if you're just a one-man show, it's why we implement profit first with you, so that you can always know where your margins are, where your money is going. And as you grow, you're not going to be, sacrificing profit or sacrificing what you pay yourself. Fundamentally, your prices have to cover these things, all your costs. That does not just mean your cost of goods sold. Now, does anybody here know what cost of goods sold is? Could you unmute and maybe tell me what your cost of goods sold? What is cost of goods sold? Does anybody?
Material, labor, anything it takes to get the job done.
Correct, Scott. And that's a great way to think about it. My cost of goods sold is I'm spending this money directly because I am spending this money for this job. So supplies, equipment rentals, subcontractors, labor, that is your cost of goods sold. If you are just taking your cost of goods sold and tacking on 20%, I promise you, you are not making a 20% profit margin, because you are not thinking about your overhead costs. If you guys don't know what overhead is, I'm going to cover it in this next slide, so bear with me. We also have a lot of videos on it. But your overhead are the business expenses that happen whether you're doing work or not. things like marketing fees, things like ads, things like insurance, your phone bills. If you have an office building, if you have an office manager, these are things that you're going to be paying on a monthly basis, no matter if you're doing work or not. And we've also got to consider things like taxes and what you're paying yourself. Those are all things that we have to calculate into our price. We have to know what our margins are in order to have an accurate price. And then also, if you're a premium service, your price needs to reflect it. There's always going to be somebody cheaper than you. There's always going to be somebody more expensive. Just accept that mentally, move on. If you're a premium service, you're going to charge a premium price. And one thing that really helps with that is your online reputation. If you have a higher rating and more reviews than all of your competitors, you are the clear choice, and it is clear that you are a premium service and you deserve a premium price. If you have less than 10 reviews and you've got really crappy photos on your Google business listing, and you're looking like you're not going to be charging a premium price. You're a small little, even if you do premium services. And so your online reputation does come into play here. If you're smoking everybody when it comes to reviews, reputation, you've got high quality photos on that listing, you got photos of your team, they're looking all nice with their polos on, you're a premium service. You deserve to get charged a premium price. People are going to come to you expecting to pay more for a higher quality service.
Yep. That's exactly what I was going to interject there is service business. It is worth it to get professional photos of your team and your trucks. That presents so well on your website. If you do some slight remodeling, like for a plumber, or if it really does change the space with some electrical work that you've done as well, with maybe hanging some beautiful lights in a beautiful home, take photos and get those photos done well, because that's going to present well on your website. It allows you to charge for this. It costs you what, $200-300 for the photos, but it makes you how much more every time you book a job? For remodelers and general contractors, even more so. Get it of the product or the work that you're doing. That will allow you to charge this higher price point, and it justifies that too. The other thing I was going to add to this point is that, price point and this premium service stuff that Nicole is talking about, a lot of people can become fearful that charging a higher price, they're going to lose more customers.
We're going to talk about that later.
Oh,
I've got a whole PowerPoint for it.
oh, whoa. Okay. Just saying.
We're going to go over it. And I have that as my last slide because I know that that's the fear that comes up. Anytime we talk about prices or raising prices, or anytime I talk to a client about their margins that they need to raise prices, there's always some fears that come up with that. And so
Right.
I have my last slide, we're going to cover it, and then we're going to roll into questions, because I feel like we're going to need some questions and some confidence building after we talk about this. So
I won't steal your thunder.
Okay.
Because it's not related. I see what you have coming. But the premium service deal with the premium pricing as well. If you charge higher prices, people often also expect, as long as your reputation matches, if they see you online and it looks good too, then they expect that you're a premium provider. You get put into this different category of contractors, and that closes you with the better clients you want anyways. That's all. And
then to start kind of building your guys' confidence, I tell clients this all the time, because pricing is an emotional thing. Money is an emotional thing. It's very much so tied to our emotions, to our self-esteem, to our confidence. Pricing is not a matter of opinion. It is a matter of fact. And what I mean by that is, once you know your margins, you know how much of your revenue is going towards your cost of goods sold, towards your overhead, towards your owner's pay, towards your tax, towards your emergencies. Once you know, towards your profit, once you know your margins, it's very easy to come up with your prices. And your margins are what they are. We can do things to improve them, to help lower your cost of goods sold, to help lower your overhead, but once you know your margins, your margins are how you come up with your prices. So it's not a matter of opinion. It's not charging this, so I need to charge this. It's a matter of your margins. And I promise you guys, do not listen to Joe Schmo up the street and what he's pricing. There is something to doing some competitive shopping and to listening what other people's are pricing. But we're a business coaching company, guys. Companies who are multi-million dollar companies, part of a franchise, staying busy year round, come to us because they are not profitable. And so if you're getting your pricing information from another company, you do not know their bookkeeping. You do not know what their profit margin is. You do not know what their overhead is. You don't know. And so just because you see somebody's really busy, staying booked out, and they're charging less than you, it doesn't mean that they're doing better than you. In fact, it could mean that next month they're closed down. And so the best way to know where your prices need to be is by knowing your margins. And you cannot do this if you do not have accurate bookkeeping. There is no better investment you can make as a business owner than having accurate bookkeeping. If you have a bookkeeper that shoots you a P&L every 3 months and doesn't speak to you other than that, they're probably not doing a great job. You need to have somebody who is actively looking at your books, who's giving you advice, who's telling you what is a red flag, who's categorizing things correctly, because the data points that you're going to use to come up with your prices is based from that bookkeeping. If you're wondering if your bookkeeping is not accurate, please send your coach a P&L, because typically by looking at a P&L, we can get a pretty good idea if something is off or not. And I think we have a whole video about how to understand a P&L. I think Bryce did one. So if you need that.
That was last week.
But I think we have like a Loom video that's like in the course. Don't we have like yeah. And so if you need that, let us know. And then if you're like, Nicole, I'm pricing the way you're telling me to price. I feel like my pricing before I start the job is very, very good. But at the end of the job, it doesn't end up being that way. The way I priced is not turning out like with the money in hand. It's not lining up. This could be a couple different things. It could be cash flow issues. You might be in the habit of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Maybe we talk about draw schedules, not taking money from other jobs to fund current jobs. It could be the way that we're managing the job, meaning that we're not accounting for change orders, we're not adjusting prices when change orders happen, we're not adjusting timelines and adjusting our estimate accordingly. I think we have several group calls and Loom videos all about this particular topic. And so if you feel like, Nicole, I feel like I'm pricing accurately, but maybe the way I'm managing jobs, I'm losing money during the job, that's kind of a whole nother animal. And it could correlate with pricings, but a lot of times there's other factors coming into play. So let us know. There's ways to address it. Now, fundamentally, how you come up with your prices is pretty simple. It's a very simple formula of labor plus materials plus subs. So essentially your cost of goods sold, my supplies, my materials, my labor, plus my overhead percentage. So on average, how much of my revenue each month goes towards overhead? If you know that percentage, you're going to tack that onto your cost of goods sold. And then you're going to tack on your 20% net profit. If you do that and you know that your percentages are accurate and you're managing your job correctly, you are going to pull the profits that you want. Your pricing is going to work out. When it comes to money on hand, you're going to have it at the end of the job. We do have an estimate tool. I'm not going to open it up, but it's a spreadsheet. It's a very simple formula that we use to help clients figure out what is my cost of goods sold for this job, what's my overhead percentage, and then I'm going to tack on profit. And so if you're wanting that, let us know, email your coach, and we'll get you a copy of it. If you don't know your overhead, if you're like, Nicole, I know you've explained it, but I'm still a little fuzzy. Finances are hard. Totally get it. I've got a video about understanding overhead. It looks like Travis just put it in the group chat. And so if you need to kind of have overhead broken down for you, we've got that video. We're also going to have a Q&A here in a couple minutes, so we can get more into it then as well. And then if you're still struggling to pull the right margins, then we need to kind of get more on a minute level. Maybe we need to track individual jobs. How much money am I spending? Item out every single expense. How much money is coming in? Let me line item all of that out. and then let me see at the end of the day what my profit should be and go from there. Maybe we need to do some estimate comparisons. Maybe, and this, I feel like 9 times out of 10, clients are not estimating enough time on their jobs. And so maybe you're looking at what you originally estimated versus what the job ended up being, and you're realizing I estimated 2 weeks and this took us 4. That's a problem. Maybe we're just being thinking that we can finish jobs quicker. Maybe we're not adjusting prices and timelines for change orders. You know, that's a whole animal that we need to diagnose and discuss. We have another group call about cash flow versus profitability issues. You might be in the boat where you're like, Nicole, at the end of the year, my accountant tells me I'm very profitable, but I don't have any of that money in the bank. Or maybe I have some months where I'm rolling high and I have other months where I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. That could be more of a cash flow issue compared to a profitability issue. We have some cash flow power moves. We've got group calls about that. We can help you diagnose that. And then let's say that your cost of goods sold is over 80% of your total revenue. Or let's say your overhead is over 20% of your total revenue. That's really high. That could mean that we need to just simply adjust our prices so our prices are higher. It could mean that you need to go through your bank statements and perform the triple D. This is called the delay, dilute, and delete of expenses. We have a video about that as well. But these activities that you can do to help lower your margins so that you're not just constantly having to jack up that price. Now, one thing Bryce brought up earlier, and like I said, this is the question that gets asked. I'm sure it's been a question on your guys' minds as I've been talking. How do I not lose clients over increases? You know, Nicole, you just told me that people are tightening their belts. It's a weird year, inflation. Yes, all that's fact. All that's true. The first step here is you have to think that you are worth it. You have to be confident. You have to believe that your product is good. The product and services that you provide are premium. And so I deserve a premium price. Until you believe it, until you have that confidence, nobody's going to be willing to pay it. And so how to kind of avoid this? First step, and I mentioned this in the beginning of the call, sales and prices are very correlated. The only thing that people care about other than getting the cheapest deal is the value that they are receiving. And so if your sales process is not built around from that very first phone call, I am communicating the value that I provide, the benefits I provide, what makes me different, you will never be able to sell at a premium price point. If you are just sending people an estimate and hoping that they say yes, you will never be able to sell at a premium price point. You are putting yourself in the category of my customers are just going to go with whoever is the cheapest price. We've got to make sure that our sales process is kick ass and that we are communicating value from that very first phone call if you don't want to lose people over having a premium price. Another tip, tip of the trade is anytime you give options, it becomes a pick one compared to a yes or a no. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to come to every single estimate with 3 drawn out detailed estimates. That's going to take way too much time. It also does not mean that if the price that you come in is too high, you just drop it. That's not what that means either. It means being able to go over estimate with somebody in person. So if they get weird about price, you can say, okay, what price point were you looking to stay under? Okay, instead of 30,000, you were looking to be at 25. Here's what we could do for that price point. Here's this option, which is the one I recommend. Here's the price point. Here's this option. It has all of the bells and whistles. Here's why it would be a good option for you. Here's this price point. And then there's the cheapest option, which would be more of a Band-Aid. This is why I'm not recommending it, but this is what it would do for you. If you are equipped, and as a remodeler, you can even kind of customize it even more where it's like, okay, maybe instead of these cabinets, we get these, or instead of these countertops, we get these. But if you are sitting down, going over your estimate in person, and you're able to give options, your chances of closing that deal are significantly higher. Yes or no. It's a pick one. And then start in 10% increments over time. This is not a rule of thumb. In fact, I debated not even putting this in here because I'm kind of a rip the Band-Aid off type of person where it's like, if we need to increase prices, we just need to freaking increase them. Just increase them. Let's not make this slow and drawn out. Let's not overthink it. But if you have a long way to go, if you're like, Nicole, my hourly rate is $100 right now, and I need to be closer to like $250. Okay, maybe we just subtly increase that and we set dates. It's not like, oh, eventually I'll get there. No, we have hard deadlines where we're increasing this price this much now. And then this day we're going to do blank more. Have very set, strict deadlines that you're holding yourself to. But you can start with increments if you are, wanting to kind of take the more timid approach. But again, I would encourage you just start pricing the way you need to price. You will probably be shocked about how most people don't even notice. And the jobs that you are doing and performing, even if you're doing less work, you're going to be making more money. And then I actually stole this one from Robert, and I wanted to keep it here because I just love it. Just freaking do it. Reasons for not increasing prices are primarily based in irrational fear and insecurity. And that is just so true. Being a business owner is hard. Knowing your prices, being able to price the way you want to is hard. But it doesn't mean it's not worth doing. And any of your fears, any of your insecurity around it, I promise you, we can work through it. They're not usually based in reality. This is a quote we use all the time. It's by Paul Graham. You found the market price when buyers complain but still pay. What that means, there's always going to be somebody that will complain, whether you're the most expensive in town or the cheapest. We're not going to be adjusting our prices based off of that person. But if you're having people who are saying, that's at the top of my budget, but we just really want to go with you, that's the language you're looking for. If that's the communication you are getting, then you can feel pretty confident that you're doing a great job in your sales process with communicating value, because they understand, hey, this is at the top of my price point, but I know I'm going to get a lot from it. And then before we kind of get into the Q&A here, Grant Cardone, he says, never lower your price, add value. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, because if you want to charge a premium price, you got to make sure you're communicating value. A lot of you, there's a lot of fears. If you're scared that you're not worth it, if you feel like your employees sell out of their own wallets, this is a big thing. If you feel like your employees aren't confident in your prices, or if you feel like they're selling out of their own wallets, that's something that we have to address in our sales process. If you're scared about the state of the world, inflation, and losing deals, these are not pricing issues. These are confidence issues. And those are going to be addressed by your sales process, and it must be fixed starting with you as the owner of the company before you're going to be able to fix it with your team. And so I put this link to this group call here that's focused on communicating value, how to communicate value and price the way that you need to price without losing deals. So if you're in a situation where you need to increase your prices, or maybe you're having a hard time selling at the price point you need to sell at, I would recommend listening to that call. Okay, opening up the floor to you guys. I know we covered a lot here about pricing, about margins, a little bit about sales. Would love to know what questions you all have.
I'll start with one. So I'm kind of in a phase where my business has certainly been scaling over the last 6 months. Kind of went from like more of like the handyman kind of guy to actually diving more into the actual general contractor role and maturing into that actual kind of business. So with that sort of like quick scaling, what are some tips or maybe some tactics that people have used to track overhead as the business scales? Because certainly, I kind of get in a point where I'm spinning my wheels and maybe I'm pricing things at my overhead from 3 months ago where I was, doing, a fraction of the revenue. So, I do my best to keep up with it, but Would love to hear any, tactics or things to implement to keep track of that overhead accurately. And, as things progress and scale, how to manage and maintain that.
I would love to hear from a client. If any clients run profit first, I would love to specifically hear from you. Anybody? Why I say that, Riley, is because Profit First is built for that. It is built for you to be able to know exactly how much money is going towards your overhead on a weekly and monthly basis. And so if you have Profit First set up correctly, let's say you have a credit card that you put all of your overhead expenses on at the end of the month, you pay off that credit card out of that overhead account, you're going to know for sure how much of your revenue is going towards overhead every single month. And so if you're running Profit First accurately, you're not going to have to be going through your bank statements every single month and putting them in different, spreadsheets to figure out where your margins are. And so I'd really lean into getting Profit First implemented.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, I've had some obstacles to getting that started on the banking side, but I've finally gotten things kind of
there's
ironed
some
out.
clients on here who could empathize with you in that regard as well. That's usually the hardest part.
Yeah, there's, for whatever reason, a lot of resistance for me to just, keep my money in more than one spot. So, but I think I've gotten it ironed out. So.
Awesome. Any other questions about pricing, about other things? Profit First, margins?
Nicole, we may not be the greatest example on Profit First because we have been struggling, as you know. But I just wanted to share that it has kept us aimed in the right direction and working on the areas that we need to work on and make sure that we are doing all those things the right way. And we've got separate accounts set up, and it has made a huge difference. I feel like in any other, we started a new business, and I've never used this method before, and we've always just had maybe 2 bank accounts, and everything just kind of went in. Everything you just
Money
lost
came
track.
in
You
and
didn't
money
know if you
came
were
out.
making money. You didn't know if you were making money or not.
Right.
And at least now, we have more of the tendency to think we're not making money than to be blissfully ignorant and just go along with our head in the clouds.
Right.
And try to fix problems sometimes that aren't necessarily there, but it's been keeping us on our toes.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to clarify, when Scott said that they're struggling, it's not Profit First is working for them. We're having trouble getting their office manager to accurately fill out this spreadsheet. But what I found out when I met with them last week is they're like, Nicole, when we look at this spreadsheet, we're doing really bad, but we actually have a lot of money in our accounts and we're not zeroing them out. So I wanted to emphasize that. That's kind of a win that their accounts are looking even better than we thought because of running Profit First. I think I saw somebody put in the chat. Jordan, that's so true. Hard to fix problems you don't know you have. That is the truth. If you're just in the mindset of money comes in the account and money goes out, it's going to be really hard to accurately price and diagnose issues. So true. Any other questions? We've got a couple minutes here.
Yeah, I was just gonna say on the 10% price increase that you mentioned, Nicole, just to kind of the just do it a little bit. Chris Balmer was on the call earlier. I was hoping he'd be around for this, but he recently just did a 10% price increase. It's been a few years since adjusted the pricing in the business, and he's kind of found himself in a position where he's staying busy, but the cash flow is tough sometimes. The the profitability isn't where we want it to be. And so while we're working on figuring out all the numbers and everything, he went ahead and did a 10% price increase for a week or two and ran it, and has found that he's so far not really seeing any fewer people, turning down his price. And so he kind of did that experimental 10% increase. And so now he's still landing the same jobs that he was landing previously. He's just got an extra 10% that originally wasn't there. And so that's just kind of proof that it works if you're feeling that way. The 10% is a good place to start sometimes.
Absolutely. And Riley, I would even say right now, because you are so booked out and busy, now's a really good time to do some price increases. When you have more leads than you know what to do with, that's a pretty good opportunity to raise those prices. I wish Wake Construction was on this call. I don't think they are, but we recently did some pretty big price increases with them, and he was kind of freaking out. He's like, Nicole, my closing ratio, I used to get every single job I quoted, and now I'm getting like half. I go, praise be, Matt. I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we're only getting half, because you used to lose money on jobs. And so I would rather us be winning half the amount of jobs, but we're making a 20% profit margin on all of the work that we're doing, than working for free or going backwards. And so keep that in mind. If your closing ratio right now is stellar and you raise your prices and it goes down a little bit, that doesn't mean that you're taking steps back. That doesn't mean you need to go back to your old prices. It actually means you're taking a lot of steps forward. Now, if you're not closing anything, that's a bigger problem. We've got a lot of calls that can help you with those sales, but keep that in mind. Any other questions, concerns, grievances? Okay, if something comes up, oh, Ryan, tell us.
Oh, no, I was just going to chime in. I mean, I know we've got a laser call booked for tomorrow to sort of go over that same scenario of what you're talking about. We didn't really, I wouldn't say we did a 10% increase across the board, but after this new round of insurances, everything sort of kind of hit on this, like with the shopping the insurance. I feel like you're if you got a good relationship with the broker needs to be bringing you 3 or 4 different comparables, and if they're not, they're just bringing you one. That would be something I would bring up. Like, well, what do I have to compare it to show me that you're out there working and giving me the best price? But my liability insurance doubled this year, out of nowhere, and that was still the best price that I could get. I had 4 different companies competing for it, and I was blown away. I just couldn't believe that I have had no claims in 10 years. I thought 10-year mark, everything would work out. Well, no, the best price was to double my liability insurance this year, which is a pretty big hit. So,
And Ryan, that goes right along with what we're talking about today with pricing. There are those things that are out of your control. Insurance may go up, and
but
it might be the best
ridiculous.
deal you can have. And it is ridiculous, but it's out of your control. And
Right.
so your prices have to be adjusted in order to accommodate that. Otherwise, your margins are going to be taking a hit.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
so,
that's what that was leading me to that point was, yes, we're going to be talking more about it, but that's sort of what I've raised my prices a little bit, but it could be just accumulation of the time. Nobody's really buying yet. Everybody wants to know what it's going to cost when they get their money back and all that kind of stuff. So I'm crossing my fingers that April and May are going to bring some more buyers. But a lot of people, like I said, right now they're getting scared away with how much it costs to borrow money and all that stuff. So we need
oh
to be
yeah,
able to hone in on the ones that we do get, as
right.
opposed to
Sales is about sorting. It's not a matter of I need to give everybody an estimate. I need to give them all. It's about I need to have quite a few leads coming in so I can really weed them out and narrow it down to the ones that are my ideal likely buyers. These are people who already have the financing figured out, already have the money, and I'm going to make sure that my sales process is kick ass for those people. That I'm really communicating value. I'm giving options. I'm giving estimates in person. So that you're really closing those ideal deals. And what I will say, guys, I know that um, that inflation is high, that interest rates are high. I really believe that people are going to realize that they might as well stay in the home that they are in compared to buying a new one, which typically means remodeling the home that they are in. We saw it with COVID. We're seeing it quite a bit now. I've got quite cabinet builders that are picking up because people are realizing that. And so I promise you, don't buy into the myth that, nobody's buying. I promise you that's not the case. Really lean into what's in your control, and that's going to be your sales process. So I know you guys have more meetings in a day to get to, so we're going to let you guys go. We're going to close out this group call with a big 3, 2, 1 growth. So if I could get everybody to unmute for me. And if you have more questions, feel free to book a laser call or come to the group call next week with some questions. And so we're going to do a 3, 2, 1.
Growth.
Growth. Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.